Shana Tova. I hope that this is a sweet new year for you. This is the sermon that I didn't give at Congregation Knesset Israel on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, because for me it was more important to hear the voices of our children. And you'll understand why in a moment. Shh. Can you hear them? Our building is filled with children. They're having fun with Heather, learning about round challah, making challah covers, and frosting Happy Birthday World cupcakes. They're exploring and playing with puppets with Jean and Gail, who are helping out with babysitting. They're spending the day creating Jewish memories. Our largest group of kids are in the newborn to age 3 category, and we are thrilled. Our children are our future. Our children count. Later, you will hear their own words, and they're singing right here. We just read stories from our tradition of women who desperately wanted to have children. Sarah, so desperate, she conceived of a plan that her handmaiden Hagar would bear a child for her husband Abraham. Perhaps she was the original surrogate. Hannah prayed so intensely that Eli thought she was drunk. There's value in having a child. In times of old, preferably a male child. These ancient texts are difficult stories, hard to wrap our brains around. Do they have modern implications? I think so, but warning, some of this discussion may be difficult to hear. In the Talmud, we learn that one of the questions we will be asked in heaven, a good thing to contemplate on this, the birthday of the world, is, did you busy yourself with procreation? Rava, who asked the question, is thinking about the very first words that God says to the first human beings. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. But being fruitful and multiplying is not always an option. While many women want to have children and go to extraordinary lengths to ensure that they can be pregnant and carry to term, some women do not want children at all or cannot conceive. Roughly 10% of couples in America who try to get pregnant cannot, and that number is growing as the median age of marriage rises and the peak years of fertility shrink. As Ron Wolfson says in his book, The 7 Questions You Are Asked in Heaven, for some who have tried everything, adoption is an option. But this can be a difficult process, drawn out and expensive. Some employ a surrogate, but this too, as Sarah and Hagar found out, can be fraught with complications and challenges. Others find ways to be foster parents. Some women have children and then cannot take care of them. I'm grateful to our new members, the Harpers, who open their home already busy with 3 young daughters, and foster children and currently have a 2-year-old living with them. Others lose a child that is stillborn or from miscarriage or a prenatal birth defect. Perhaps that is part of your story. I want to acknowledge clearly that these experiences can be extraordinarily painful experiences, and like Sarah or Hannah, it can be hard to find hope. Some people may have had an abortion or may have chosen to. These are difficult, complicated decisions that need to be made between the parent and their doctor. Sadly, some children are raised in a situation with incredible abuse or other traumas. It is hard to imagine how children can overcome what have become known as ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. We will talk more about that tomorrow. And some people choose not to have children at all. The question, have you busied yourself with procreation, may be answered very differently. Their legacy may be building a business, creating a piece of music or art, teaching other people's children, and those too are legacies. This summer, the United States Supreme Court reversed decisions on abortion. Let me be clear. Judaism defines life as when a child is halfway out the birth canal or when it takes its first breath. Until then, it is a potential life, worthy of protection, but not at the expense of the existing life of the mother. If you need me to provide you chapter and verse on this topic, I will gladly supply them. Thus far, Illinois has protected a woman's right to choose. However, if you are in a position to need to make this difficult choice, I will sit with you, I will cry with you, I will hold your hand like so many other rabbis throughout the country. For today, know that our tradition is clear. Once there is a child, we are instructed to take care of that child. 36 times it teaches in the Torah that we need to take care of the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the most vulnerable amongst us. Taking care of our children, all our children, whether they are orphans or not, whether they are our biological children or not, is an important Jewish value. Our children count. All our children count. Let that sink in. All our children count, whatever their origins. When I was in second grade and a brand new brownie, I learned the brownie story. Perhaps you know it too. The old shoemaker complained that children are a burden. They make too much noise, they don't do their chores, they don't help out around the house, and in fact, they contribute to making messes, eating all the food, and complaining that they are bored about life in general. They just get in the way. The shoemaker wished for a brownie, something like a fairy, who would do all the housework without being nagged. The children were aghast to hear this. After consulting the wise old owl, the children learn that they themselves are the brownies, and their father learns that children are a blessing. Children are indeed a blessing. Our children, who you will hear from later this morning, are indeed a blessing. They are our legacy. They count, and they need to be cherished and taken care of. When God was deciding whom to give the Torah to, he asked the Israelites who would be good guarantors for this precious gift. The Israelites answered, "Our ancestors will be good guarantors. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, they will vouch for us." God said that they were not sufficient. The Israelites said, "Our prophets will be our guarantors." And again, God rejected the answer. Finally, the Israelites answered, "Our children will be our guarantors." For that reason, for the sake of the children, God gave the Torah to Israel. We learn another story in the Talmud that we often retell for another Jewish New Year, Tu B'Shvat, the New Year of the Trees. Honi, the circle maker, was walking on the road and saw a man planting a carob tree. Honi asked the man, "How long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" 70 years, the man answered. Honi wondered whether the man would live another 70 years to eat the fruit of the carob tree, to eat the fruit of his labors. The man answered, "Probably not. However, when I arrived in this world, there were many carob trees already planted by my father and grandfather. Just as they planted for me, so shall I plant for my children and grandchildren." Today, as we continue the celebration of Congregation Knesset Israel's 130th anniversary, we are planting for our children and grandchildren. Explaining the concept of 130 years to kids is hard. Some attended the Listen Up concert and danced in the aisles. They all have CKI 130th t-shirts, both thanks to gifts of members. We've had them count candles, much like birthday candles. Counting to 130 is a big skill. They're responsible for the banner artwork when you walk in the door, which I encourage you to help them color when it's not Yontif. In my old town of Chelmsford, their motto is, "Let the children guard what the sires have won." They seem to be in the process of changing it, perhaps, but that is still breaking news. There is an inherent problem with the motto. As Rabbi Rachel Cowan explains, with Linda Tal in their book Wise Aging, Living with Joy, Resilience, and Spirit, becoming a grandparent means seeing one's own children step into their positions as custodians of the future, those guarantors. What that is because they said, if we are wise and humble, we will ask ourselves what we can do to support their growth and well-being without imposing our own sense of what their futures should look like. We know that we are at an inflection point in modern Judaism. Our children and our grandchildren will have to figure out what Judaism looks like into the future. They will have to figure out what this very synagogue will look like. They will have to take the memories they are making today and make new memories with their own children and grandchildren, invested with their own meaning. But make no mistake, they are our guarantors. As the theme for our Days of Awe, this year it's about surviving to thriving it. Making it to 130 is a significant milestone, which came with a lot of dedication and commitment, sweat equity, and actual capital. But it's not enough to survive. As our liturgy says, merely to have survived is not a great measure of excellence. So what does it mean to enable our children to thrive? Thrive means to grow or to develop well. What then helps kids to grow well? In a TED Talk by 7-year-old Molly Wright, she explains that kids thrive and their brains expand. When you play with children, especially those under 5, she concludes that children thrive if they are connecting, talking, playing, and if they have a healthy home and community. She maintains, based on brain science, that a simple game of peekaboo or a matching game with a child can change the world. It can build curious, confident, trusting kids. And I encourage you all to watch this TED Talk. She is amazing. Or watch our own early elementary teachers play a high holiday matching game. Thank you, Jordana and Jeanette, for making that possible. Those kids are having so much fun and thriving here. Kids need access to quality education, to healthcare, to food, shelter, and clothing. Kids need to be loved and nurtured. Kids need to have adults in their lives that mentor. Those are part of how children achieve resilience. Resilience is the process of handling different types of stress and recovering from trauma or adversity in tough times. A child's resilience mostly depends on their connections to other people rather than on their own inherent qualities. Remember that game of peekaboo? That builds connections. And the good news, the research on this part of brain science has changed since I was first an educator and now a rabbi. They have identified several resilience factors that can help children and all of us to be resilient, to be able to thrive. Those include good parenting with low family stress and sound parental mental health, absence of addiction and substance abuse, a sense of safety, supportive extended family, a supportive relationship with a mentor, positive school experiences, a safe neighborhood, close community, social support, being part of a religious or faith community, and extracurricular activities. When I listen to what you most appreciate at CKI, those are the very things that promote resilience. You are creating resilience right here for our kids and for all of us. You talk about this community being like an extended family with a positive Torah school experience, with mentors and social support as part of a religious or faith community. We are helping our kids and each other thrive. What then is the legacy we want to leave our children, all our children? For thousands of years, Jews have written ethical wills. These are the values we want to pass down to our offspring. We have examples of that in the Torah, when Jacob blesses his children, when Moses speaks to all the Israelites before they cross into the land of Israel. As we celebrate Rosh Hashanah and contemplate our own stories, I encourage you during the season of reflection, return, and renewal to consider writing your own ethical will. There is no prescribed form. There are some online tools that can help. What then are those values that we want to pass down to our children and grandchildren that come from here at CKI? What is the legacy we are leaving them? What do you want your own children and grandchildren to know? A love of God, of family, of Judaism, a love of education, of learning and books, a love of asking questions and figuring out the answers, a love of being kind and caring, taking care of each other, animals, and the whole world, a sense of joy and purpose. As we identify that which was most meaningful to us here at CKI, and we listen to the voice of the shofar, and then the voices of our own children, in those ways, then your life and the lives of your offspring really will count, and you will help them thrive well into adulthood. Ken Yehi Ratzon.